Millionaire adopts poor mother and her children. The most beautiful story in the world. If you found this story interesting, subscribe to our channel and let us know which city you're watching from. Let's begin. Julianne Oliver never imagined her life would be split in two before and after the patient in room 305 was admitted. A single mother to two young children, 6-year-old Lucas and 4-year-old Sophia, she had chosen the night shifts at New Orleans Public Hospital not just for the pay differential, but for the silence. The nights in the Louisiana capital brought less chaos, fewer questions about her personal life, and fewer memories of the paths that had led her there. The humid heat of the New Orleans night wafted through the hallway windows as Julianne adjusted the ID badge on her white uniform. The daughter of a housekeeper who had raised 3 children alone in the lower 9th ward, she had sworn to herself that her story would be different. And for a while it was. She graduated from nursing school at Tulane University, married Rob, an IT technician she met while treating him at the hospital, and built what seemed to be a stable family. But time has its own agenda, and Rob couldn't resist the temptations of a life without responsibilities. After an argument on a hot summer night, he left home with little more than a few clothes, leaving behind much more than unpaid bills. He also left a pregnant Julianne with young Lucas and a void that seemed impossible to fill. Jules, a polytrauma, just came into the ER. Accident on the I-10 expressway. "They're bringing him up in 10 minutes, the voice of Connie, the nursing tech who had worked with her for almost 5 years, pulled her from her memories. Julianne checked her watch, 1:23 a.m. She was in the middle of her 12-hour shift. She adjusted the stethoscope around her neck and headed to the wing where the new patient would be admitted after initial emergency care. "What do we know about him?" she asked as she prepared the medication according to protocol. "Male, approximately 35, no ID, crashed his car into a utility pole. Head trauma, multiple fractures, but his vitals are stable," Connie replied, handing her the still incomplete chart. When the orderlies brought the patient in, Julianne immediately noticed that, despite the injuries and tubes, there was something different about him. Maybe it was the expensive brand-name shirt, now torn and stained with blood, or the Italian shoes someone had carefully placed in a plastic bag. He didn't fit the usual profile of patients who came to this wing of the public hospital. "Has anyone looked for him? Family, friends?" Julianne asked, as she helped transfer him to the bed in room 305. Dr. Marshall, the physician on duty, shook his head. "Nothing yet. The police are checking the vehicle, but there was no phone, no documents, nothing that could identify him immediately." "And his condition?" "Stable, but concerning. The head trauma was significant. He's sedated, but we don't know when he'll wake up, or if he'll wake up with all his mental faculties intact." The doctor's words hung heavy in the air. Julianne observed the patient's face, strong features, a well-trimmed beard, dark, well-cut hair. Who was he? Who was waiting for him to come home somewhere? Over the following nights, between routine checks and attending to other patients, Julianne found herself visiting room 305 more often than necessary. There was something about this unknown man that stirred a protective feeling in her, one that went beyond her professional duties. Perhaps it was the fact that he was completely alone, with no one asking about his condition or bringing a change of clean clothes. "He has hands that have never seen a day of hard labor," commented Ms. Josephine, the hospital's longest-serving kitchen aide. As she left the breakfast, the still unconscious patient wouldn't eat. "Must be some rich person lost out here." Julianne didn't reply, but she silently agreed. As she organized the medications and checked his IV drip, she began to talk to him, as she did with all unconscious patients. "It's a beautiful day out there today. The kind of day that makes you want to take the kids to the beach. My kids love the water, you know. Lucas is fascinated by the waves, and Sophia is still a little scared, but she's learning to face them." She didn't expect a response, of course. It was just her way of humanizing the care, of letting this man, even in his unconscious state, know that he wasn't alone. A week passed. The patient in 305 remained stable, but with no signs of significant improvement. No family had appeared, no worried friends. It was as if he had materialized out of thin air, with no past, no connections. On one particularly hectic morning, after her shift ended, Julianne decided to stop by room 305 before going home. She was exhausted, wanting nothing more than a hot shower and a few hours of sleep before picking up the kids from her aunt's house. But something pulled her there like an invisible magnet. "I'm discharging you today, you hear?" she joked, adjusting his sheet and checking the machines. "I'm tired of seeing your face around here." That's when she noticed a slight movement in the fingers of his right hand. A spasm, perhaps, or "Sir? Can you hear me?" The fingers moved again, this time with more purpose. Julianne pressed the call button and kept talking, her voice now filled with hope. "If you can hear me, try to squeeze my hand." She felt a light pressure on her fingers. Her heart raced. "Come on, one more time." A new pressure, stronger now. When Dr. Marshall arrived with the team, he found Julianne with tears in her eyes. "He's responding." He squeezed my hand twice. The next few minutes were a flurry of activity. Quick neurological exams, equipment adjustments, attempts to communicate. The patient didn't open his eyes or speak, but he responded to simple commands showing that despite the trauma, there was significant brain activity. "It's a good sign," the doctor explained. "A very good sign, actually. We'll adjust the medication and monitor him more closely. He might be emerging from the unconscious state." Julianne should have gone home at that moment. Her shift had ended hours ago. But how could she? She sat in the chair beside the bed and held the patient's hand. "I'm here," she said, in a voice she reserved only for her children when they had nightmares. "You're not alone." The following days brought small improvements. More conscious movements, reactions to external stimuli. The patient briefly opened his eyes on a few occasions, without real focus but demonstrating progress. And Julianne was there whenever possible, taking on extra shifts, swapping hours with colleagues, just to follow his evolution. "You're getting too involved," Connie warned, as the two shared a quick coffee in the staff room. "Remember what the supervisor always says, compassion with distance." Julianne knew her friend was right. She had made this mistake before, getting emotionally involved with patients, suffering when the outcome wasn't positive. But there was something different this time. It wasn't just compassion for a vulnerable patient. It was a connection she couldn't explain. "It's just that he has no one, Connie." Imagine waking up in a hospital confused with no memory, completely alone. Connie sighed, knowing her friend's soft heart all too well. "Just be careful, Jules. You already have 2 kids to raise on your own. You don't need to adopt another one." The conversation was interrupted by Julianne's pager. "Emergency in room 305. She ran, her heart in her throat, imagining the worst. Upon entering the room, she found the patient sitting up in bed, looking around with a confused and frightened expression, his brown eyes now open and alert, fixed on her as soon as she walked through the door. Where am I?" His voice came out hoarse, rough from disuse. Julianne approached slowly, trying not to frighten him further. "You're in New Orleans Public Hospital. You were in a car accident almost 2 weeks ago. We've been taking care of you ever since." "New Orleans." The man frowned as if the word made no sense. I don't remember how I got here." "I don't remember anything." Dr. Marshall arrived at that moment, and the next few minutes were dedicated to exams and questions. The patient didn't remember his own name, where he was from, or what he did. Post-traumatic amnesia was common in cases like his, the doctor explained, but it was impossible to predict when or if his memory would fully return. "We need to give you a name in the meantime," Julianne said, trying to ease the visible anxiety on his face. "Any suggestions?" The man looked out the window at the Louisiana sky, which was beginning to brighten with the sunrise. "Raphael," he said after a moment. "You can call me Raphael." There was no specific reason for the choice, he admitted. It just sounded familiar, comfortable. In the following weeks, as Raphael regained his physical strength, the amnesia persisted. Occasional small flashes, the scent of a specific perfume, the feeling of driving a sports car, the sound of classical music, emerged like loose pieces of an incomplete puzzle. The police continued to investigate, but with no documents or fingerprints registered in databases, progress was slow. What progressed rapidly was the connection between Raphael and Julianne. During the daily care, the physical therapy sessions she accompanied, and the long conversations in the quiet early hours at the hospital, an unexpected bond formed. He was genuinely interested in her life, her children, her dreams, and her struggles. And she, in turn, found in him an attentive listener, present in a way that few men had ever been in her life. "Your kids seem incredible," Raphael commented, looking at a photo on Julianne's phone that she had shown him during a break. In the image, Lucas and Sophia were playing in the sand at Lake Pontchartrain Beach, their wide smiles reflecting the pure joy of childhood. "They are my reason for living," Julianne replied, with the proud smile that always appeared when she spoke of her little ones. "Lucas is the sensible one, always looking out for his sister. Sophia is pure fire, determined and stubborn like her mother. They're lucky to have you." There was a disarming sincerity in Raphael's voice. Not all children have someone who loves them that much. There was something in the tone of that sentence, a subtle melancholy that made Julianne wonder if he was starting to remember his own childhood. Or perhaps children he might have somewhere. Or their father. Is he not involved? The question caught Julianne by surprise. It was something few people dared to ask directly. "No. He left when he found out I was pregnant with Sophia. Said he wasn't ready for more responsibilities." She shrugged, a gesture that tried to diminish the pain she still felt. "It's better this way. A half-hearted presence does more harm than a complete absence." Raphael nodded thoughtfully. "Still, it must be hard. Doing everything alone." "You manage," she replied with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "My aunt helps by watching them when I'm on shift. We have a support network. That's what matters." That night, upon leaving the hospital after a particularly long shift, Julianne noticed an envelope tucked under the windshield wiper of her car. An old Ford Focus that cost more in maintenance than it had to buy. Inside the envelope, she found $300 bills and a note written in a handwriting she didn't recognize. "For a special day with your children. From someone who cares." Her first instinct was indignation. It felt like charity. And if there was one thing Julianne valued, it was her pride and independence. But then she thought of Lucas, who needed new school supplies, and Sophia, who had asked for a doll that cost more than Julianne could afford that month. She put the money in her purse, promising herself she would find out who the anonymous benefactor was. Her suspicions initially fell on Connie or Dr. Marshall, colleagues who knew her tight financial situation, but both vehemently denied it. That's when she began to notice other small mysteries involving Raphael. First, there were the expensive flowers that arrived in his room with no sender identified. Then, the visit from men in suits who introduced themselves as consultants and spoke with him behind closed doors. And, most intriguingly, the fact that despite still claiming amnesia, Raphael demonstrated sophisticated knowledge of economics, international politics, and art, subjects that came up naturally in their late-night conversations. "Did you know that Impressionism emerged as a form of rebellion against French academicism?" he commented casually, while flipping through a magazine with reproductions of Monet. It was considered almost subversive at the time. Julianne watched him with curiosity. "For someone with no memory, you know a lot about art history." Raphael seemed momentarily disconcerted, as if caught in the act. "It's strange, isn't it? I remember random facts, but I can't remember who I am." She should have questioned more, insisted, perhaps even reported her suspicions to the hospital administration or the police. But there was something in his eyes, a genuine vulnerability that made her believe that, even if he wasn't telling the whole truth, Raphael was not a threat. What she couldn't imagine was that, while observing her dedicated routine at the hospital, her silent struggles as a single mother, and her quiet strength, Raphael was also forming his own conclusions about her. Conclusions that would change the course of both their lives in ways neither of them could predict. On a Sunday afternoon, when Julianne had brought the children for a quick visit, something against the rules, but which the supervisor pretended not to see, she noticed how Raphael looked at the children with a mixture of fascination and nostalgia. "Mister, do you know how to play football?" Lucas asked, showing off the Saints jersey he wore with pride. "Lucas, Mr. Raphael is still recovering," Julianne chided, but Raphael had already sat up on the edge of the bed, smiling at the boy. "I think so, champ. Maybe when I'm better, we can find out together." He looked at Julianne, as if asking for permission to make such a promise, and something in that look made her realize she was treading on dangerous ground. She was allowing her children and herself to become attached to a man who, as soon as he recovered his memory, would probably return to his previous life. A life that, judging by the signs, was very different from Julianne's simple reality in mid-city, with bills to pay and dreams deferred. That night, after putting the children to bed, Julianne sat on the small balcony of her apartment, watching the city lights. New Orleans, with its contradictory beauty, its streets that rose and fell like life itself. The next day, Raphael would have more tests. His physical recovery was almost complete. Soon he would be discharged. And then what? Her cell phone rang, displaying the hospital's number. She answered with a racing heart, fearing an emergency. Julianne. Raphael's voice sounded so close, she could almost feel his breath. I need to tell you something. I think I'm starting to remember. Silence filled the line for a few seconds. Julianne felt her heart race, unsure whether to be happy or fearful of this revelation. What kind of memories? She finally asked, gripping the phone tightly. Fragments still. Nothing concrete. Raphael's voice sounded different, firmer, as if each word was carefully chosen. But there's something important I need to check. Could you come to the hospital tomorrow, even though it's your day off? Julianne hesitated. She had promised to take the children to City Park, a rare commitment in her tight schedule as a mother and professional. It's really important, Julianne. There was a genuine urgency in his voice that she couldn't ignore. I'll be there in the morning, she promised, knowing she would have to make an excuse for the children. Another small disappointment in the collection of postponed moments that made up her single motherhood. After hanging up, Julianne felt a chill run down her spine. There was something in Raphael's voice, a certainty that wasn't there before, as if he had awakened not just to his memories, but to a purpose. The next morning dawned with that typical golden light that bathed New Orleans, turning even the simplest corners of the city into postcard scenes. Julianne left the children with her aunt, promising to make it up to them the next weekend, and drove to the hospital with a growing anxiety in her chest. Upon arriving at room 305, she found Raphael no longer in bed, but sitting in an armchair by the window, watching the city's movement below. He was wearing new clothes, slacks and a button-down shirt that was certainly not part of the standard hospital attire. Who brought these clothes? Julianne asked, stopping at the door, also noticing the fresh haircut and precisely trimmed beard. Raphael turned to her with a serene smile. Good morning to you too, Julianne. Something had changed. It wasn't just his external appearance, but something in his gaze, his posture, the very essence that emanated from him. You've recovered your memory, it wasn't a question. Partially, he admitted, indicating the chair in front of him. Please sit down. We have a lot to talk about. Julianne obeyed, feeling strangely formal in the situation. For weeks, she had been the one caring for him, the one with the knowledge and control. Now for the first time she felt at a disadvantage. My real name is Gabriel Mercer, he began, watching her reaction closely. I'm a businessman, primarily in the healthcare sector. How long have you known? Julianne tried to keep her voice neutral, but a slight tremor of hurt showed through. The flashes started a few days ago, but last night, after you left, everything came back with more clarity, or almost everything. He stood up and walked to the window again as if the movement helped organize his thoughts. I was in New Orleans for an important meeting. My company, Mercer Healthcare, is expanding its operations in the South. He turned to face her. One of the institutions we were evaluating for a potential partnership was this hospital. Julianne felt her stomach drop. Gabriel, it was hard to think of him by any name other than Raphael, was not just an anonymous patient. He was a businessman, probably influential, with a complex life awaiting his return. Why didn't you say anything sooner? Why didn't you contact your family, your associates? Gabriel? Or should she keep calling him Raphael? Sat down again, leaning forward, his elbows on his knees. Because there's something strange about this accident, Julianne. It wasn't a simple crash. I shouldn't have been alone in that car. My driver and my assistant were supposed to be with me. He frowned, as if trying to force the memories to fit together. There are still pieces missing from the puzzle. People I can't remember. Decisions that don't make sense. Do you think, Julianne hesitated, the idea seeming too absurd to voice, that it wasn't an accident? He completed. It's a possibility I'm considering. That's why I asked for discretion from the doctors and the people who recognized me in the last few days. The shock must have been visible on Julianne's face. because Gabriel softened his expression. I don't want to scare you, but I need to understand what happened before I resume my public life. Julianne tried to absorb it all. The vulnerable patient for whom she had developed confused feelings was, in fact, a powerful businessman embroiled in some kind of mystery. She should step away, let him solve his own problems. I don't understand what I have to do with this, she finally said. Why call me here to tell me these things? Gabriel stood up and picked up a leather folder from the table, handing it to her. Because during these weeks, while I was trying to recover who I was, you showed me something much more important, who I could be. Julianne opened the folder hesitantly. Inside, she found official documents with the Mercer Foundation letterhead. The title of the first document made her heart stop for a moment. New Beginnings Project, Support for Single Parents in Healthcare. What? What is this? An idea that was born while I was watching you, Julianne. An exemplary professional who goes to great lengths to raise her children without support, without a safety net beyond her own strength. Gabriel, it was easier to think of him by his real name now, spoke with a passion she had never seen before. How many Juliannes are there in this hospital alone? How many nurses, doctors, technicians, cleaning staff are in the same situation? Julianne leafed through the documents, trying to comprehend. It was an ambitious project. Scholarships for professional qualification, childcare assistance, psychological support, all aimed at healthcare professionals who were single mothers or fathers. This is incredible, she admitted, feeling an unexpected emotion tighten her throat. But why? Gabriel sat beside her, his eyes fixed on hers with a disconcerting intensity. Because you saved me, Julianne, not just physically. You gave me something I didn't know I needed, perspective. He took the folder back and removed another, thinner document. I want you to coordinate the project. You know the reality. You have the experience and the necessary sensitivity. Julianne laughed, a nervous sound that escaped before she could contain it. Me, I can barely coordinate my own life. How could I manage something of this scale? With support, with resources, with the freedom to build something that really makes a difference. The proposal was too tempting to be true. Julianne felt that familiar sense of distrust emerge. Life had taught her that extraordinary gifts came with equally extraordinary prices. And what do you get out of this, Gabriel? He wasn't offended by the direct question. In fact, he smiled as if he appreciated her frankness. Purpose, meaning, something that all the money and power I've accumulated couldn't give me. Before Julianne could respond, the door to the room opened. An elegant, middle-aged woman entered as if she owned the place. She wore an impeccable suit and carried a folder similar to the one Gabriel had shown. I finally found you, Gabriel. Why haven't you been answering my calls? Everyone is... The woman stopped upon noticing Julianne. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know you were in a meeting. Gabriel stood up, visibly tense. Julianne, this is Christina Mercer, my sister and the company's CFO. Christina, this is Julianne Oliver, the nurse who took care of me and the person who will be coordinating our new social project. Christina examined Julianne from head to toe, a polite but distant smile on her perfect face. Charmed. Gabriel has always had a knack for discovering new talent. The condescending tone did not go unnoticed. Can we speak alone, little brother? We have urgent family and business matters to resolve. Julianne stood up, suddenly feeling out of place. Of course, I was just leaving. I have to pick up my children. Children? Christina arched a perfectly drawn eyebrow. Plural? How lovely. The comment brought a flush of anger to Julianne's face, but she maintained her composure. Gabriel, noticing the tension, stepped forward. Christina, I ask that you respect Julianne. She not only saved my life, but she also inspired me to create a project that will be the new flagship of our foundation. There was a firmness in his voice that made his sister back down slightly. Of course, of course. We will certainly discuss all the details later. Christina forced another artificial smile. I'm just relieved to have found my brother alive and, apparently with new interests. Julianne took the opportunity to say goodbye. I'll let you talk, Gabriel. Raphael, whatever you prefer to be called now, thank you for the offer. I'll think about it carefully. He gently held her arm as she passed him. Don't take too long. Some opportunities don't come back. The touch and the words stayed with her long after she left the hospital. As she drove to pick up her children, Julianne tried to process everything that had happened. Raphael, the vulnerable and kind patient, had transformed into Gabriel Mercer, a powerful businessman with connections and resources she could barely imagine. And now he wanted her to be part of his world, in a way that seemed too generous not to hide other intentions. Lucas and Sophia were playing in the small yard of their aunt's house when she arrived. Upon seeing her, they ran with that pure joy that only children can show without reservation. "Mummy, is Mr. Raphael really going to play football with me?" Lucas asked, his eyes shining with expectation. The question caught Julianne off guard. How do you explain to a 6-year-old that Mr. Raphael was now Gabriel Mercer, a man who would probably return to his luxurious life and forget the promises made during his recovery? "We'll see, sweetie. Mr. Raphael is still recovering." "But he promised," Lucas insisted, with the simple and relentless logic of children. "And you always say that promises are sacred." Julianne felt the weight of those words. Yes, she had always taught her children the value of commitments, even as she dealt with the broken promises that dotted her own life. "I know, my love. We'll talk about it later, okay?" That night, after putting the children to bed, Julianne sat with a cup of tea in the small living room of her apartment. The documents Gabriel had shown her were spread on the coffee table, along with a card with his personal number, which he had discreetly given her when Christina wasn't looking. The project was truly impressive. It wasn't just about charity, but about structural transformation. If implemented as described, it could change the lives of dozens, perhaps hundreds of families, including hers. Her cell phone vibrated with a message. It was Gabriel. "Sorry for Christina's behavior today. Not everyone in my family shares my vision. I hope it hasn't changed your consideration of the project. You would be perfect to lead it." Julianne stared at the message for long moments. There was something more between the lines. An offer, yes, but also a veiled request. Gabriel needed her, not just for the project, but as an anchor for the man he had discovered himself to be during his amnesia. "I need time," she finally replied. "It's an important decision. I understand, but there's something I need to show you before you decide. Can I stop by tomorrow at 10 a.m.? Julianne hesitated. Allowing Gabriel to come to her home, to see her daily reality, seemed like too big a step. A crossing of worlds that was perhaps better kept separate. "I'd rather we meet in a neutral place," she suggested. "I know a cafe in the French Quarter." The reply came quickly. "As you wish. Send me the address. I'll be there." That night, Julianne slept poorly, dreaming of labyrinthine hospitals, where Raphael and Gabriel were two different people, both calling for her in corridors that never met. The Riverbend Cafe was on a bustling corner of the French Quarter, a bohemian neighborhood in New Orleans. Julianne had chosen the place deliberately. It was simple but charming, frequented by a mix of students, artists, and local professionals. She wanted to see how Gabriel would behave out of his element. She arrived a few minutes early, wearing jeans, a simple t-shirt, and sandals. Her day-off uniform, as she joked with the kids. She ordered a coffee and waited, watching the street life through the window. Gabriel arrived punctually, but not as she expected. No luxury car with a driver, no impeccable suit or expensive accessories. He came on foot, wearing light linen pants, a blue cotton shirt, and casual shoes. He looked more like the Raphael she had known in the hospital than the Gabriel Mercer his sister had treated with such deference. "Good morning," he said, sitting across from her with a genuine smile. "Interesting place." "One of my favorites," Julianne replied, studying him with curiosity. "I was expecting to see you arrive in a limousine." Gabriel laughed, a relaxed sound she had rarely heard in the hospital. "I prefer to walk when I can. It helps me think. Besides, New Orleans is a city to be experienced on foot, not through tinted windows." He ordered a simple coffee when the waitress approached, with no frills or special requests. Julianne noticed that he treated the employee with the same polite courtesy he showed the doctors at the hospital. "So," she began, once they were alone again, "what did you need to show me so urgently?" Gabriel took a small electronic device from his pocket, no larger than a flash drive. He placed it on the table between them. "This was found in my car after the accident. It's a tracking device. Someone was monitoring my movements." Julianne looked at the small object with apprehension. "Do you think someone wanted to hurt you? Maybe. Or just know where I was and what I was doing?" Gabriel put the device away again. "I've made enemies in recent years, Julianne. My company grew by acquiring, Hospitals in financial difficulty, restructuring them, making them profitable again. For some, that means saving jobs and improving services. For others, it means cutting fat and eliminating certain convenient practices. What kind of practices? Gabriel hesitated, as if weighing how much he should reveal. Let's just say the American healthcare system has its complexities. Not all of them benefit the patients. Overbilling? Misappropriation of funds? Julianne was well aware of the shortcomings of the system where she worked. Among other things, Gabriel confirmed, my approach has been unpopular with certain groups that benefit from these irregularities. He took a sip of coffee, his eyes never leaving hers. But I discovered something during my recovery, Julianne, something that might have been worth the accident. And what would that be? That while I was busy building an empire, looking at spreadsheets and acquisitions, I had lost touch with the true essence of what we do. Healthcare isn't about numbers or efficiency. It's about people. Gabriel leaned forward, his voice lowering to a more intimate tone. People like you, like your children, like the patients you treat with such dedication. Julianne felt the impact of those words, but she kept her guard up. Nice speech. But I still don't understand what you want from me. I want you to help me reconnect those two realities, the world of business, of resources, of the power for large-scale transformation, with the real world of the people who need those resources. Gabriel spoke with an intensity that made it difficult to look away. The project for single mothers and fathers is just the beginning. I have a bigger vision, a transformation in the way we manage healthcare in this country. And why me? There are people far more qualified, with MBAs, management experience. Because you have something that no MBA can teach, integrity, and a real connection with the people we serve. Gabriel took her hands across the table, a sudden gesture that caught her off guard. When I was lying in that bed with no memory, no identity, you were the only one who treated me like a human being, not like a case or a problem. You gave me dignity. Julianne felt the warmth of his hands on hers, a contact that sent a confusing wave of emotions through her body. She pulled her hands back, needing distance to think clearly. I'm flattered, Gabriel. Really. But I have a life here. Young children, a stable job. A job that barely pays your bills, he completed, with no accusation in his voice, just stating a fact they both knew to be true. Children who deserve opportunities that you fight daily to provide. Julianne felt a pang of irritation. Don't use my children as an argument. Gabriel immediately backed off. You're right, I'm sorry, that was inappropriate. They sat in silence for a moment, the buzz of the cafe filling the space between them. I'm not asking for an immediate answer, Gabriel said finally, but I want you to consider it seriously. Besides the project, I'd like you to work directly with me on the restructuring of New Orleans Public Hospital, which we are about to take over as management partners. Julianne almost choked on her coffee. What did you say? You're taking over? The hospital? It's a process that began before my accident. The city was looking for private partners to improve management. Our model preserves 100% public service, but brings private management efficiency. And everyone at the hospital already knows this? Only the board for now. The official announcement will be next week. Julianne tried to absorb the information. The hospital where she had worked for years would undergo a radical transformation, and Gabriel was offering her a role in that process. I need to think, she said finally. It's not just about me. It's about my children, my stability. Gabriel nodded, understanding. Of course, take all the time you need. He checked his watch and made an apologetic expression. Unfortunately, I have a meeting in half an hour. Can I give you a ride? No, thank you. I'm going to stay a little longer. Gabriel stood up, leaving a few bills on the table that more than covered the cost of their coffees. One last thing, Julianne. I know it seems like I'm offering you something, but the truth is, I'm asking. Asking for your help to make a real difference. After he left, Julianne remained seated, watching the street life through the window. New Orleans continued its rhythm, indifferent to the upheavals transforming her life. Her phone vibrated with a message from her aunt, asking if she could pick up the children from school, as she had an unexpected appointment. The reality of her daily life was calling her back. While Gabriel talked about ambitious projects and transformations, she still had to deal with the mundane details that kept her family running. On the way to her children's school, Julianne passed in front of New Orleans Public Hospital. The building, with its worn facade and its sign with missing letters, seemed more melancholy now that she knew of its imminent future. How many changes had it already witnessed? How many patients had passed through those doors, each carrying their own stories of pain and hope? It was then that she noticed a dark car parked across the street, with a man in a suit observing the hospital entrance. Something about the way he carried himself, his focused attention, set off an alarm in Julianne. She slowed her pace, pretending to look for something in her purse, while observing him discreetly. The man was talking on the phone, his posture tense, constantly looking around as if expecting someone. When a black Mercedes parked near the entrance and Gabriel got out, accompanied by two men who looked like aides, Julianne saw the mysterious man take out a camera and start taking pictures. Her protective instinct took over. Without a second thought, she crossed the street and approached Gabriel, who smiled when he saw her. "Julianne, what a nice surprise. Changed your mind about the ride?" "Actually, I just wanted to warn you," she said softly, standing beside him. "There's someone taking pictures of you. Dark car across the street." Gabriel didn't look in the indicated direction. Instead, he kept his smile and placed a hand on her back, guiding her toward the hospital entrance. "Thanks for the warning. Unfortunately, I'm used to it." His voice was calm, but Julianne could feel the tension in his body. "But it's not normal for it to happen here. I'm usually followed in New York at corporate events. Does it have to do with what you told me today about enemies?" Gabriel signaled to one of the aides, who immediately understood and headed toward the suspicious car. "Possibly, or it could just be the business press. I've been news since I was resurrected." He tried to make a joke, but the humor didn't reach his eyes. Once inside the hospital, he led her to a more secluded corner of the lobby. "Julianne, this only reinforces what I said. I need people I can trust by my side. People who see beyond appearances." She felt the weight of those words. "Gabriel, what is really going on? This accident, these photographers, your hurry to implement this project. There's something you're not telling me." He looked around as if to check if they were truly alone, then lowered his voice even more. "I believe someone within my close circle is working against me. Someone who doesn't want the changes I intend to implement to happen." "Your sister," Julianne ventured, remembering the evident tension between the two. Gabriel hesitated. "Christina and I have our differences, but she's family. I'd rather believe she wouldn't go that far." He sighed. "But yes, she leads the faction within the company that prefers to focus exclusively on profitability and growth, while I have been advocating for a more balanced approach with social responsibility." One of the aides returned, interrupting the conversation. He whispered something in Gabriel's ear, who nodded gravely. "I have to go. Meeting with the board." He took Julianne's hands, squeezing them gently. "Think about my proposal. And please, be careful. If you notice anything strange, anyone watching you or your children, call me immediately." The mention of her children made Julianne's blood run cold. "Do you think my children or I could be in danger?" No, Gabriel hastened to reassure her. "But it's better to be safe. You've become involved in my story, and for now I'd prefer to keep that discreet." He hesitated, as if wanting to say more, but the aide called him again. "I have to go. We'll talk later." Julianne stood in the lobby, watching him walk away with his confident stride, greeting employees along the way as if he were already the new director of the hospital. In a few days, perhaps he would be. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur. She picked up the children from school, prepared dinner, helped with homework, all on autopilot, while her mind buzzed with possibilities and doubts. That evening, after putting Lucas and Sophia to bed, she sat again with the project documents. The more she read, the more impressed she was with the depth and scope of what Gabriel was proposing. It wasn't a simple corporate marketing stunt, it was a comprehensive plan that could really make a difference. Her cell phone rang, displaying Connie's number. She answered, feeling an inexplicable tightness in her chest. "Jules, you're not going to believe this." Her friend's voice sounded agitated. An internal memo just went out. The hospital has been bought by a private group. Guess who the owner is? Gabriel Mercer, Julianne replied, unsurprised. How do you know this is still confidential? Julianne sighed. It's a long story, Connie. A very long story. Her friend was silent for a moment. It has something to do with the patient from 305, doesn't it? The Raphael who wasn't really Raphael. Yes, Julianne admitted. Actually, he offered me a job to coordinate a social project for his foundation and participate in the hospital's restructuring. Connie's exclamation was so loud that Julianne had to pull the phone away from her ear. Oh my God, girl. Are you serious? That's unbelievable. I know, Julianne agreed. It feels like something out of a TV show. And you're going to accept, right? You'd be crazy not to. Julianne walked to the window, watching the New Orleans night, the city lights reflecting on the distant Mississippi River. I don't know, Connie. I'm afraid of what it might mean. It's a completely different world from mine. That's exactly why. It's the chance of a lifetime, Jules. Think about your kids, their future. There it was again, the argument Gabriel had used. Her children. Their future. The opportunity to provide them with more than she had ever dreamed of. I'll think about it, she promised her friend. I have to go now. I'm exhausted. After ending the call, Julianne remained at the window for a long time. The city continued its nightly dance below, oblivious to the dilemmas consuming her. Her cell phone vibrated with a new message. Gabriel again. Productive meeting today. The team is excited about the changes, especially about the project you're going to lead. P.S. I noticed you warned me about the photographer today. Thank you for looking out for me, even when I'm no longer your patient. The message brought a reluctant smile to Julianne's lips. There was something in the way he expressed himself, a mix of professionalism and vulnerability, that made it difficult to keep her defenses up. Before she could reply, another message arrived. Tomorrow there will be a small meeting at my house to discuss the next steps for the project. I would very much like you to participate. I sent a formal invitation to your email, but I wanted to invite you personally as well. It's important to me. Julianne opened her email and there it was, an elegant invitation to a working brunch at Gabriel Mercer's residence, at one of the most exclusive addresses in New Orleans. The decision that had seemed so complex suddenly simplified. She would go to the meeting. She would hear the full proposal. She would get to know more about this man who had entered her life so unexpectedly. And then, only then, would she decide. She replied with a simple message. I'll be there. Across the city, in his penthouse overlooking the river, Gabriel smiled as he read the reply. He turned to the person sitting in front of him, his sister Christina, who was watching him with a poorly disguised expression of concern. She agreed to come, he announced, not hiding his satisfaction. Gabriel, are you sure about this? You've barely recovered from the accident, and you're already involving a complete stranger in such delicate company matters. Christina nervously adjusted the gold bracelet on her wrist. The board is worried. I'm worried. Julianne is not a stranger, he replied firmly. And as for the board, they work for me, not the other way around. Even so, this nurse, Gabriel interrupted, has more integrity in her little finger than many of our executives have in their entire bodies. And more importantly, she is the key to everything we plan to do. Christina stood up, clearly uncomfortable. I just hope you know what you're doing, little brother. There's a lot at stake. More than you can imagine, Gabriel agreed, his gaze lost in the view of the city, much more than you can imagine. The next morning, Julianne woke up before her alarm. She had slept little, her mind restless with all the possibilities opening up on her horizon. She got up and went straight to her small closet, staring at its contents with a frustration she rarely allowed herself to feel. Nothing in there seemed suitable for a meeting at the home of a businessman like Gabriel Mercer. After several attempts, she opted for a simple navy blue dress, her lucky color, and flat sandals. She tied her hair back in a discreet bun and applied a soft lipstick. She wanted to look professional, but not like she was trying to be something she wasn't. The children were still asleep when she finished getting ready. She had arranged for her Aunt Sue to come stay with them while she was out. A pang of guilt hit her. It was Saturday. She usually dedicated her weekend mornings entirely to the children. But this was an opportunity she couldn't ignore. When the doorbell rang announcing Aunt Sue's arrival, Julianne had already prepared the children's breakfast and left detailed notes about the day's routine. "You look very elegant," her aunt commented. A 60-year-old woman, with the same warm smile Julianne had inherited. "This job must be very important." "It's not exactly an interview," Julianne explained. "More of a meeting to learn about a project." Sue watched her with shrewd eyes that always saw beyond what Julianne said. "Does this project have anything to do with that mysterious patient you mentioned?" Julianne hesitated. She hadn't told her aunt the full details, only that a former patient had offered her a professional opportunity. "Yes, it's his project." "In fact, he's Gabriel Mercer." The name clearly meant nothing to Sue, and who might this young man be? "He owns a chain of hospitals. An important businessman." Julianne picked up her purse, checking if she had all her documents. "The hospital where I work will be managed by his group soon." Sue crossed her arms, a gesture Julianne knew from childhood. It meant her aunt was forming an opinion, and it wouldn't necessarily be favorable. "And this important businessman is offering a job specifically to you? Why?" The direct question caught Julianne off guard, even though it was exactly what she had been asking herself. Because he believes I can contribute to the project. It's aimed at single mothers and fathers working in healthcare. And how did he meet you?" "He was my patient, Auntie. He had an accident, was hospitalized for weeks." Sue frowned. "So he met you when he was vulnerable, depending on your care. And now that he's recovered and back in power, he wants to give you a job." She shook her head. "Be careful, my child. Powerful men rarely do anything without ulterior motives." "It's not like that," Julianne defended, though the doubt had already crossed her mind. "It's a legitimate project with documentation, structure. It will benefit many families." "If you say so," Sue replied, but her tone made it clear she wasn't convinced. "I just don't want to see you or my grandnephews get hurt." "What you went through with that irresponsible Rob is enough." The mention of her ex-husband brought a shadow to Julianne's face. "This has nothing to do with Rob. It's purely professional." "If you say so," her aunt repeated with a smile that said the exact opposite. "Go on. We'll be here when you get back." The driver Gabriel had sent, something that surprised her as she didn't expect such a courtesy, was already waiting outside. A middle-aged man with a formal posture but a kind smile, who introduced himself as Mr. Silverman. "Good morning, Miss Oliver. Mr. Mercer asked me to come pick you up. I hope I haven't arrived too early." "No, it's fine," she replied, still uncomfortable with the treatment. No one had ever called her Ms. Oliver before. During the drive, Mr. Silverman was discreetly attentive, pointing out places of interest in the city as if she were a tourist, not a long-time resident. Julianne realized it was probably the standard treatment he offered Gabriel's guests. As they left the working-class neighborhood where Julianne lived and entered more exclusive areas, the urban landscape transformed drastically. Newer, more elegant buildings, cleaner streets, more greenery. The car finally stopped in front of a modern and imposing building on the New Orleans riverfront, with a privileged view of the Mississippi. "We've arrived, Miss Oliver. Mr. Mercer lives in the penthouse. The doorman has been notified of your arrival." Julianne took a deep breath before getting out of the car. This was a world completely different from hers, a world where people like her usually only entered as employees, never as guests. The building's lobby was elegant without being ostentatious, with light marble and well-tended plants. The doorman, a black man in an impeccable uniform, greeted her with deference and indicated the private elevator that would take her directly to the penthouse. "Good morning, ma'am. Mr. Mercer is waiting. Please use this elevator." The elevator ascended smoothly to the top floor. When the doors opened, Julianne found herself in a small private foyer, decorated with contemporary artworks that she suspected were originals. A single dark wood door separated her from the apartment. Before she could even ring the bell, the door opened. Gabriel was there, wearing light-colored pants and a blue shirt, no tie. A casual chic look that somehow made him even more attractive than the formal suit from the previous day. "Julianne, I'm so glad you came." His smile seemed genuinely happy to see her. "Please come in. You look beautiful, by the way." The comment brought an unexpected blush to her cheeks. "Thank you. Your driver is very kind. Mr. Silverman has been with me for over 10 years. He's practically family." Gabriel guided her through the apartment, his hand resting lightly on her back. The space was impressive, large with double-height ceilings and floor-to-ceiling windows that framed a breathtaking view of the Mississippi River. The decor was sophisticated, but welcoming, with modern furniture mixed with pieces that seemed to have a history. "It's impressive," Julianne commented, trying not to seem starstruck. "Thank you. I completely renovated it when I bought it 3 years ago. I wanted a place that was sophisticated, but not pretentious. A refuge." He made a gesture encompassing the space. "I rarely have people over. I prefer to keep my personal life separate from business. But I'm here for a business meeting, right?" Julianne asked, wanting to clearly establish the purpose of her visit. "Of course," Gabriel readily agreed. "The other guests will arrive in about half an hour. I thought we could talk a bit before so you're fully prepared." He led her to the balcony, where a table was set for breakfast. Fresh tropical fruits, various breads, juices, coffee, all arranged with understated elegance. "Help yourself. I imagine you left early and didn't have time to eat properly." In fact, Julianne had only had a quick coffee, too anxious to have an appetite. She accepted some juice and a slice of bread, while Gabriel poured himself some coffee. "Who else will be at this meeting?" she asked, trying to keep the conversation professional. "Bernardo Motta, director of the Mercer Foundation, Dr. Helena Vasconcelos, who coordinates our healthcare projects, and Roger Lima, who handles the financial side." Gabriel sat across from her, his eyes fixed on hers. "They are the key people for the project's implementation. They are all already enthusiastic about your participation." "You already told them I accepted?" Julianne couldn't hide her surprise. "But I haven't even decided yet." Gabriel smiled, that confident smile she was beginning to know well. "I just said I was in negotiations with an exceptional person, someone who deeply understands the reality we want to transform." Before they could continue, the intercom buzzed. Gabriel answered, confirming the arrival of the first guests. "Let's go to the meeting room," he said, guiding her through the apartment to a more formal space, with an oval table for 10 and state-of-the-art video conferencing equipment. In the following minutes, Julianne was introduced to the other participants. Bernardo, a man in his 50s with an academic air. Helena, an elegant and articulate doctor. And Roger, a young executive with an analytical expression. They all greeted her with respect, but Julianne couldn't help but notice curious glances, as if they were trying to understand what she was doing there. "Julianne Oliver has been a nurse at New Orleans Public Hospital for 8 years, Gabriel introduced. "In addition to her technical experience, she brings an invaluable perspective as a single mother of 2. Exactly the audience we want to impact with our project." The meeting was surprisingly productive. To Julianne's relief, no one treated her with condescension. On the contrary, her opinions were frequently sought, especially by Helena, who seemed genuinely interested in her practical experience. "The biggest difficulty for single mothers in healthcare isn't just financial," Julianne explained at one point. "It's the daily logistics, shifts that don't coincide with school hours, emergencies that arise when there's no one to leave the children with, the lack of a formal support network." Helena nodded enthusiastically. "Exactly what we've been discussing." "What do you think of the idea of having childcare spaces within the hospitals themselves?" "It would be revolutionary," Julianne replied, allowing herself for the first time to concretely visualize the project. Many professionals abandon their careers or accept positions below their qualifications just because they need hours that are more compatible with motherhood. The discussion continued for almost 2 hours. Plans were outlined, preliminary budgets presented, timelines established. Julianne was surprised by the seriousness and depth of the project. It was not a token initiative. It was something with real potential for transformation. When the formal meeting ended, Gabriel invited everyone for lunch on the balcony. The conversation became more relaxed, and Julianne began to unwind. These were dedicated professionals, people who seemed genuinely committed to the cause. "So, Julianne," Bernardo said, as they savored a gumbo prepared by Gabriel's private chef, "what's your impression of the project?" All eyes turned to her. It was time to take a stance. "Honestly, it's more ambitious and well-structured than I imagined." Julianne chose her words carefully. "I see enormous potential, but I also have reservations." "What kind of reservations?" Helena asked, genuinely interested. "I'm concerned about long-term sustainability. Social projects often start with enthusiasm and then lose momentum when the results aren't immediate or when corporate priorities change. Gabriel smiled as if her answer had particularly pleased him. A perfectly valid concern. That's why we're establishing a dedicated endowment fund exclusively for this project. The funds are already set aside and will be managed independently of the company's regular operations. Furthermore, Roger added, the idea is for the project to become partially self-sustaining within 5 years, through partnerships with the public sector and other companies. The conversation continued as they ate lunch, with Julianne becoming more and more involved in the discussions. When the guests began to leave around 2 in the afternoon, she was surprised at how quickly the time had passed. I hope we can work together soon, Helena said, shaking her hand sincerely. Gabriel is right about you. You have exactly the perspective we need. When everyone was gone, Julianne found herself alone with Gabriel again. He invited her back to the balcony, where the scene had changed. The dining table had been replaced by comfortable armchairs facing the river. So? He asked, pouring himself a coffee. What did you think of the team? Impressive, Julianne admitted. All very competent, and they seem to really believe in the project. They believe because they know it's not just another marketing initiative. It's a structural transformation in how we support our professionals. Gabriel sat across from her. But you still haven't answered the main question. Will you accept the challenge? Julianne took a deep breath, looking at the stunning landscape before her. I have to be honest, Gabriel. All of this still feels surreal to me. A few weeks ago, you were just a nameless patient in room 305. Now you're offering me a position that would completely change my life. I understand your hesitation. He leaned forward, his eyes intensely fixed on hers. But sometimes life presents unexpected opportunities exactly when we need them most. Don't you believe in fate, Julianne? She laughed lightly. I don't know if I believe in fate, but I believe in timing and in intentions. Her gaze became more serious. What do you really want from me, Gabriel? Why me? There are hundreds of professionals more technically qualified for this position. Gabriel was silent for a moment, as if carefully weighing his next words. I'll tell you something that few people know, he said finally. When I was a child, my mother raised us alone, me and Christina. My father left the family when I was 6. The revelation surprised Julianne. In the media, the Mercer family was always portrayed as an example of American business success, with no mention of personal dramas. She was a nurse, like you. She worked 2 jobs to give us the basics. She studied at dawn to advance her career. Gabriel's voice carried a rarely shown emotion. Our uncle, her brother, eventually took us in when the situation became unsustainable. He had a small clinic that, with hard work and some risky loans, became the embryo of what is now the Mercer Group. I didn't know that, Julianne murmured. Few people do. The official story is more palatable for the market. Gabriel smiled without humor. My mother passed away when I was 20, already in business school. Cancer. She never saw the empire her brother built that I helped expand. He stood up, walking to the edge of the balcony. Do you know what she told me before she passed? Take care of the nurses, Gabriel. They hold up the world, but no one holds their hands. Julianne felt an unexpected emotion tighten her throat. There was a vulnerability in Gabriel at that moment that she had never seen before. For years, I promised myself I would do something significant in her memory, something that would truly honor her sacrifice. He turned to face her. When I woke up in that hospital, with no memory, no identity, you were the first person I really saw. Not as a case, a number, a problem to be solved. You saw me as a human being when I didn't even know who I was. I was just doing my job, Julianne protested, uncomfortable with the weight of those words. No, you did much more. Gabriel approached, sitting beside her. When my memory started to come back, fragments of who I was mixing with the person I was becoming in that hospital, I realized something fundamental. I had lost the original purpose of my work. I was building hospitals, clinics, companies, but I had forgotten the people they exist for. He took her hands, a gesture that now seemed natural between them. You reconnected me with that purpose, Julianne, and you made me remember the promise I made to my mother. The silence that followed was heavy with emotion. Julianne could feel the weight of that revelation, the sincerity in Gabriel's words. It was a story that explained a lot. His connection to her, his interest in the project, the resistance from his sister Christina. "I really want to make this project happen," Gabriel continued after a moment, "but I need someone who will maintain its essence, who will never allow it to become just another soulless corporate initiative. Someone like you, Julianne. And what if I'm not the right person? What if I don't have the skills needed for something so big? You'll have all the support you need. Training, mentorship, a team. What you can't learn in training is exactly what you already have. Integrity, empathy, real knowledge of the reality we want to transform." Julianne felt torn. Part of her, the practical part, calloused by years of struggle, warned of the risks of changing her stable life for a promise, no matter how bright. Another part, the dreamer she had never managed to completely silence, envisioned not just an improvement in her own life, but the impact she could have on the lives of so many others. "I need to think about my children," she said finally. "Any decision I make directly affects their lives. I understand perfectly, and I want you to know that, regardless of your decision about the position, the project will move forward, and your children are included in the benefits of the educational scholarship program we're creating." Julianne frowned. "I don't want charity, Gabriel." "It's not charity," he replied firmly. "It's recognition. And it's also personal, I admit. I only met Lucas and Sophia briefly, but—" He paused as if choosing his words carefully. "Let's just say they reminded me how important it is to have adults who care in a child's life." An unexpected stir arose within her. There was something in the way Gabriel spoke of her children, a tenderness, a care, that touched a sensitive spot in her mother's heart. "Why do I get the feeling this goes beyond professional for you?" she asked directly, deciding it was time to confront the elephant in the room. Gabriel did not look away. "Because it does. I won't deny that I feel a connection with you, Julianne. Something that started when I was just Raphael, a man with no past, and only grew when I recovered who I am." The admission hung between them, laden with unspoken possibilities. "This complicates things," she murmured, "or maybe it simplifies them," he replied, "because it means that regardless of your professional decision, I would like to get to know you better. You and your children." The declaration was simple, direct, but carried enormous implications. Julianne stood up, needing space to think clearly. "This is a lot to process, Gabriel. The project, the position, and now this." He respected her space, remaining seated. "I completely understand. And I don't expect an immediate answer to any of these questions. I just ask that you consider it, with all the time you need." At that moment, Julianne's cell phone rang. It was her aunt, informing her that Sophia had a fever. "I have to go," she said, feeling a mixture of concern and relief at the interruption. "My daughter isn't well." "Of course," Gabriel stood up immediately. "Mr. Silverman can take you, or I can call my private doctor to see Sophia if you prefer." "That's not necessary, thank you." Julianne grabbed her purse, reorganizing her thoughts. "It's probably just a virus. It happens often at this age." Gabriel walked her to the door. "Julianne," he called as she was already in the elevator hall. "Regardless of anything, thank you for coming today. It was important to me. For the project." She nodded, not trusting her own voice to respond properly. There was too much to consider, too many conflicting emotions to process. During the ride back, watching New Orleans pass by the window of the luxury car, Julianne tried to organize her thoughts. Gabriel Mercer had offered not just a job, but a vision of the future. For her, for her children, for so many other families like hers. And now, he had also suggested the possibility of something more personal between them. It was a lot for a nurse who, until a few weeks ago, was content with her simple routine, her night shifts, her modest apartment in mid-city. When she got home, she found Sophia lying on the sofa, her face flushed with fever. Lucas sat beside his sister, reading her a story to distract her. Always the protector, the little man of the house. "Mommy's home," he announced with evident relief. Julianne immediately went into mom mode, checking Sophia's temperature, preparing a lukewarm bath, administering medicine to bring the fever down. Her aunt had done everything right, but Sophia always calmed down faster with her mother nearby. "How was the meeting?" Sue asked as the two prepared tea in the small kitchen. "It was interesting," Julianne replied, not knowing where to begin explaining everything that had happened. From the look on your face, it was more than interesting, her aunt commented with her usual insight. This Gabriel got to you, didn't he? Julianne felt her face flush. It's not that, Auntie. The project is really impressive. It could make a difference for many families like ours. And he offered you the job? Yes, to coordinate the project. Sue nodded slowly, her face revealing a mixture of pride and concern. You deserve it, child. You've always worked hard, always sacrificed for your children. She paused. But be careful with your heart. Men like this Gabriel live in another world. It's not like that, Auntie, Julianne protested, but without much conviction. He had a difficult childhood, too. He was raised by a single mother, like my kids. Sue didn't seem convinced. And now he's a rich and powerful man who can have any woman he wants. I'm just telling you to protect your heart. You've suffered enough with Rob. Julianne didn't answer. What could she say? That Gabriel was different, that the connection between them seemed to transcend social and economic differences. It would sound naive even to her own ears. That night, after Sophia's fever had subsided and the children had finally fallen asleep, Julianne received a message from Gabriel. How is Sophia? I hope she's feeling better. I thought a lot about our conversation today. I want you to know that, regardless of your decision about the position, the project will move forward. But it would be much more special with you at the helm. There was a sincerity in that message that touched Julianne deeply. Before she could reply, another message arrived, and about the other matter we discussed. Just know that there's no rush. I'd like to get to know you, really get to know you, without the nurse-patient or potential employee-employer dynamic. Just Julianne and Gabriel, if you'll allow it. How to respond to that? Julianne felt simultaneously drawn and apprehensive. There was something in Gabriel that resonated within her, awakening feelings she had buried after the disaster of her marriage, but the differences between their worlds were abyssal. After much thought, she replied with sincerity, Sophia is better, thank you for asking. About the project, I'm really interested, but I need a few days to organize my thoughts and understand how it would affect our family routine. As for the other matter, maybe we can start slow, one step at a time. The reply came almost immediately. Perfect. One step at a time. How about we start with lunch on Sunday? You and the kids. I know a place by the water that has an amazing space for children to play. Julianne felt a smile form. Say lunch, a simple step without grand commitments or promises. I think we can do that. Sophia will be recovered by then. Great. Mr. Silverman will pick you up at noon. Rest well, Julianne. That night, for the first time in a long time, Julianne slept deeply, without the worries that usually kept her awake. There was a new feeling in the air, not exactly hope, perhaps, but an openness to possibilities she had never considered. At the other end of the city, Gabriel did not share the same tranquility. In his penthouse office, he stared at the computer screen with a grave expression. On the screen, a detailed report on suspicious activities that had been identified in the financial system of one of the group's hospitals. The same hospital where he had been admitted after the accident. His phone rang. It was Antonio, the head of security he had hired to discreetly investigate the accident. Mr. Mercer, we have news. And it's not good. Gabriel straightened in his chair. Go on. We've confirmed that the brake system of your car was tampered with. It wasn't an accident. The confirmation of his suspicions did not surprise him, but he still felt a chill run down his spine. And what about the driver and my assistant? Both received a considerable sum of money in their accounts the week before the incident. They have been missing ever since. Someone tried to kill me, Gabriel murmured, the reality of the situation weighing on him. And they will probably try again when they realize I'm moving forward with my plans. We should reinforce your personal security, Antonio suggested, and perhaps reconsider the implementation of the project until we identify all those involved. Gabriel thought of Julianne, her children, the commitment he was beginning to form. No, he finally decided, I'm not postponing anything. Just reinforce the security, but discreetly. I don't want to alarm anyone. After hanging up, he remained for a long time watching the city lights. Someone had tried to silence him permanently. Someone who opposed the changes he planned to implement in the group. Someone close enough to have access to his car, his driver, his assistant. Christina's face appeared in his mind, but he immediately dismissed the idea. His sister could be ambitious and disagree with his visions, but to try to kill him, no, there had to be another explanation. His gaze shifted to the picture frame on his desk, an old photo, him as a child, in his mother's arms. She was wearing her nurse's uniform, her face tired but proud. "I'm going to keep my promise, Mom," he murmured to the image, "no matter the cost." The next morning he woke with a renewed determination. The veiled threats only strengthened his conviction that he was on the right path. If someone was willing to eliminate him to stop his plans, it was because these plans could really change the status quo. He sent a message to Julianne. "Good morning. Thinking about our lunch tomorrow. Is there anything specific that Lucas and Sophia like to eat? I want to make sure it's special for them too." The reply took a little while, probably because she was busy with the children in her Sunday morning routine. "Good morning. Lucas loves seafood, especially shrimp. Sophia is pickier, but she always likes pasta and chicken. Thanks for asking." Gabriel smiled. A simple detail, asking about the children's preferences, but it showed genuine consideration. He wanted Julianne to see that his interest was not just in her, but in the entire small family unit she had built with so much effort. As he mentally planned the lunch, his cell phone rang. It was Christina again. "Gabriel, we need to talk urgently. I'm worried about the rumors circulating on the board." "What rumors?" he asked, though he already suspected. "About this sudden obsession of yours with social projects, and about this nurse you want to put in charge of a multi-million-dollar investment." Christina's voice sounded controlled, but he knew his sister well enough to detect the underlying tension. "Some board members are questioning your stability after the accident." "My stability?" Gabriel felt a wave of irritation. "Or my determination to finally do something meaningful with our resources?" "Gabriel, be reasonable. You showed up after being missing for weeks, with a convenient amnesia, and suddenly you want to completely reorient the company's priorities towards welfare projects." "They're not welfare projects, Christina. It's strategic social responsibility. And as for my amnesia, if you're insinuating it was faked—" "I'm not insinuating anything," she interrupted quickly. "I'm just reporting the board's concerns. And my own." Gabriel took a deep breath, trying to control his growing frustration. "Look, I'm not going to discuss this over the phone. We can have dinner together tomorrow night and talk properly." "I can't tomorrow. I have a meeting with the team for the hospital acquisition in Memphis." Christina paused significantly. "Someone has to take care of business while you recover." The insinuation was clear and irritating, but Gabriel decided not to fuel the conflict. "Tuesday, then. At the restaurant in the Roosevelt." "At 8. "I'll be there," Christina agreed dryly. "And Gabriel, try not to make any public announcements about your new projects until we've talked, okay? Out of consideration for the company our uncle built with so much sacrifice." The mention of their uncle, a figure Christina knew Gabriel deeply respected, was a low blow, but typical of her tactics. She always knew which buttons to push. "See you Tuesday, Christina," he replied, ending the call before he said something he would regret. The conversation with his sister left a bitter taste. Gabriel had always known he would face internal resistance, but he had hoped Christina would eventually understand the importance of what he was trying to build. Apparently, the path would be more difficult than he had anticipated. His phone vibrated with a message from Bernardo, the Foundation's director. "Project documentation ready for final review. Julianne Oliver impressed everyone yesterday. Excellent choice." At least on one front, things were moving forward. Gabriel mentally reviewed the next steps. Lunch with Julianne and the children the next day, the tense dinner with Christina on Tuesday, and on Wednesday. On Wednesday, if all went as planned, the official announcement of the project and the press release. A tight schedule, which would be challenging even without the added complication of someone trying to kill him. Not to mention the growing feelings for Julianne, which had caught him completely off guard. Who would have thought that a nearly fatal accident would end up opening the doors to a new life? A life that, for the first time in many years, seemed to have a purpose beyond the accumulation of wealth and power. He sent one last message to Antonio. "Reinforce security tomorrow, discreetly. Lunch with important people." The response was immediate and professional. "Understood, sir. Security reinforced without visibility." Gabriel looked again at the photo of his mother. I'm following your advice, Mom. I'm taking care of the nurses, starting with a very special one. Sunday dawned with that impeccable blue sky that makes New Orleans look like a postcard. Julianne woke up early as always, but this time with a different kind of anxiety pulsing in her chest. It wasn't the usual worry about paying bills or the accumulated fatigue from her shifts. It was an almost adolescent anticipation for lunch with Gabriel. Sophia had already recovered, her fever completely gone. In fact, the little girl seemed especially excited that morning, chattering non-stop about the hospital uncle as Julianne brushed her curly hair. "Is he really going to play football with me, Mommy?" Lucas asked for the third time as he put on his favorite Saints jersey. "I don't know, sweetie." "He might still be recovering from the accident," Julianne replied, trying to manage her little one's expectations. "But he promised," Lucas insisted, with the relentless logic of children. "And you always say promises are sacred," Julianne sighed. "Yes, promises are important, but sometimes people need time to keep them, especially when they're recovering from health problems." The doorbell rang at exactly noon. Julianne expected to find only Mr. Silverman, the driver. But when she opened the door, Gabriel was there smiling, with a small bouquet of tropical flowers in one hand and 2 packages wrapped in colorful paper in the other. "I hope I'm not being too forward by showing up like this," he said, looking almost shy. "But I thought it would be more personal if I came to pick you up myself." He was wearing light pants, a navy blue shirt and casual shoes, a relaxed look that still screamed sophistication. Julianne, in her simple printed cotton dress, felt momentarily inadequate, but his genuine smile quickly dispelled that feeling. "It's a surprise, but a good one," she replied, accepting the flowers. "Thank you, they're beautiful." Before she could invite him in, Lucas and Sophia appeared behind her, observing the visitor with undisguised curiosity. "Mr. Raphael!" Lucas exclaimed, recognizing him immediately. "Did you bring presents?" "Lucas!" Julianne chided, embarrassed by her son's frankness. Gabriel laughed, crouching down to be at the children's level. "Yes, I did. I hope your mom doesn't mind." He looked at Julianne, seeking approval. She nodded, unable to deny the evident joy on her children's faces. Gabriel handed the packages to the children, who immediately tore open the decorative paper. Lucas received a complete football kit with a ball, cleats, and an official Saints uniform. His eyes widened with excitement. "Mom, look! It's just like what the real players wear." Sophia, for her part, got a sophisticated and realistic toy doctor's kit, with all the instruments she used to see Julianne use at the hospital. "Now you can take care of people like your mom," Gabriel explained. Smiling at the little girl, "Can I listen to your heart?" Sophia asked, already taking the toy stethoscope from the case. "Of course you can. Doctor?" he replied solemnly, bending down so she could reach his chest. Julianne watched the scene with a lump in her throat. Gabriel had chosen gifts that not only showed generosity, but also a genuine understanding of who her children were, their interests, their personalities. They weren't just expensive toys. They were gestures that showed attention. "You didn't have to do that," she said softly, as he approached while the children examined their new gifts. "I know. I wanted to." His gaze was intense, sincere. "I hope I haven't overstepped any boundaries." Julianne shook her head. "No, it's just that they're not used to gifts like this. I don't want them to get their hopes up." Gabriel nodded, understanding what she wasn't saying. "Expectations about him, about his role in their lives. One step at a time, remember," he said gently. "Today is just a lunch." The restaurant Gabriel chose was in a beachfront complex in Gulfport, about an hour from New Orleans. It was elegant without being ostentatious, with outdoor tables, a sea view, and a specially designated area for children. With supervisors and activities. "This place is incredible," Julianne commented, as a waiter led them to a prime table, near the sea but with a view of the playground where the children could play after the meal. "I come here occasionally, when I need to escape the hustle and bustle of the city," Gabriel explained. "It has a perfect balance of sophistication and relaxation." Lucas and Sophia looked at everything with wide eyes, the sparkling sea, the elegant people, the attentive waiters who addressed them with the same deference they showed the adults. "Can we go to the sand later, Mummy?" Sophia asked, pointing to the beach visible just below the restaurant's deck. "If Mr. Gabriel doesn't mind," Julianne replied, looking at him. "Not only do I not mind, I insist," Gabriel assured her. "In fact, I brought swimsuits and towels in the car, in case you wanted to enjoy the water." Julianne raised her eyebrows, surprised by the level of planning. "You've thought of everything." "I tried," he admitted with an almost shy smile. "I wanted it to be a special day." Lunch passed in a surprisingly relaxed atmosphere. Gabriel was attentive not only to Julianne, but especially to the children. He talked with Lucas about football with genuine knowledge and answered Sophia's endless questions about how things worked, from boats to seashells, with infinite patience. "You're good with children," Julianne observed, as they watched them play on the playground after dessert. "I don't think I've ever had the chance to find out before," he replied, a trace of melancholy in his voice. "My life has always been so focused on work, on building the empire that, well, some important experiences were left behind. Never thought about having children?" Gabriel was silent for a moment, watching Lucas help Sophia climb a slide. "I thought about it, yes, but it never seemed like the right time or the right person." He turned to face her. "My marriage was brief and unhappy. A union that was more commercial than emotional, to be frank." "You were married?" The revelation surprised Julianne. In the quick internet searches she had done on him, she had found no mention of a marriage. "For 3 years, almost a decade ago. We kept it quiet and ended it the same way." His gaze was open, honest. "Carolina was the daughter of an important investor in the group. The marriage made sense on paper, but, well, we soon realized we were more efficient as business partners than as a couple." "I'm sorry." "I'm not," Gabriel replied with a slight smile. "It was an important lesson. It showed me that some things can't be planned like business acquisitions." He paused. "And you? Besides what I know about Rob, have there been other serious relationships?" Julianne shook her head. "There was no time or space for that. After he left, with Sophia yet to be born, my life became a constant exercise in survival. Working, raising the children, paying bills. Relationships seemed like a luxury I couldn't afford." Gabriel nodded, understanding. "And now, do you still feel the same?" The question hung between them, laden with implications. Julianne looked at him, at the man who a few weeks ago was just a nameless patient and now represented a complete turnaround in her existence. "Now, I'm relearning that maybe there's room for more in life than just surviving," she finally replied. Gabriel's smile brightened. He reached his hand across the table, touching hers gently. "I'm happy to hear that." The intimate moment was interrupted by Lucas, who came running back to the table. "Mr. Gabriel, you promised to play football with me. Can we go now?" Gabriel looked at Julianne as if asking for permission. She nodded, smiling. "Of course, champ. Let's show your mom and sister how to really play football." The next few hours passed like a dream for Julianne. Sitting on the sand, watching Gabriel play football with Lucas while Sophia built sandcastles beside her, she felt a kind of peace she hadn't experienced in years. There was something deeply right about that scene, as if the pieces of a puzzle were finally fitting together. Gabriel played with Lucas as if he had all the time in the world, without condescension, genuinely engaged in the impromptu game. When the boy scored a goal using flip-flops as goalposts, the hug Gabriel gave him was so genuine, so full of shared joy, that Julianne felt unexpected tears form in her eyes. She checked on the children one more time before getting ready for bed. Lucas had hugged his new ball even while sleeping. Sophia kept the toy stethoscope close to her chest. The image of them, so peaceful, so confident in their security, brought a wave of love and protection. Any decision she made from now on, whether about the job or about Gabriel, would have to consider, above all, the well-being of these two little lives that depended on her. The next morning, Julianne woke up to her cell phone ringing. It was Connie, her friend and colleague from the hospital. "Jules, you have to see this. It's all over the online news." What are you talking about?" "About Gabriel Mercer." "The project, you!" Julianne sat up abruptly in bed. "What do you mean, me?" He gave an exclusive interview announcing the New Beginnings project, focused on single mothers in healthcare, and he mentioned you as the inspiration and future coordinator. With a racing heart, Julianne quickly opened the browser on her cell phone. The news was indeed everywhere. Business websites, health portals, even some general newspapers. The headline of the main New Orleans newspaper read, Businessman Gabriel Mercer announces million-dollar project inspired by nurse who saved him. The article included details of the project, a brief mention of the mysterious accident that had left Gabriel hospitalized, and to Julianne's horror, her full name and the information that she was a single mother of 2. "Connie, I didn't authorize any of this. I haven't even officially accepted the job yet." "Really? But it says here that you'll take over as coordinator in 2 weeks. Connie's voice sounded confused. "I thought it was all settled." Julianne felt a wave of irritation. Gabriel had announced everything without her final authorization, practically forcing her to accept the position publicly so as not to contradict the bombshell news. Her cell phone indicated a new call. It was Gabriel himself. "I have to go, Connie. I'll call you later." She took a deep breath before answering, trying to control her irritation. "Gabriel, what's this all about? You announced the project without telling me, and you named me as coordinator when I haven't even accepted yet." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Julianne, I'm sorry. This isn't how I planned it. The press somehow found out about the project and started speculating. I had to make an official statement to avoid distortions, and you couldn't have told me beforehand. I tried calling you last night after I left, but you didn't answer." Julianne checked her phone. There was indeed a missed call from him, probably when she was bathing the children. "Even so, Gabriel, you've put me in a difficult position. Now it looks like I've already accepted the job. I know, and I sincerely apologize." His voice sounded genuinely sorry. "Maybe we can talk in person. I can stop by before you go to the hospital." Julianne sighed. "I have a shift at 8 a.m. I need to drop the kids at school first. I can meet you at the hospital then on your lunch break." "All right," she agreed, still annoyed. At noon at the diner on the corner. As she got ready for the day, trying to explain to her curious children why the teacher at school said she saw Mommy in the newspaper, Julianne felt a confusing mix of emotions. On one hand, she was genuinely irritated with Gabriel for making decisions that affected her life without consulting her properly. On the other hand, she couldn't deny the small pang of pride at seeing her name associated with such a significant project. Her shift that morning seemed endless. Colleagues who usually barely greeted her now stopped to chat, curious about her connection to the powerful businessman and the million-dollar project. The nursing supervisor, who had always been strict with Julianne, was suddenly solicitous, almost fawning. "I always knew you had potential." "Julianne," said the woman, who weeks before had denied her request for a day off for Lucas's birthday party. At noon sharp, Julianne found Gabriel already waiting at the small diner near the hospital. Dressed formally this time in a dark suit and tie, he looked out of place among the hospital employees in their simple uniforms. "Thanks for coming," he said as she approached. Julianne sat across from him, still maintaining a reserved posture. "I didn't have much choice, did I? Apparently I'm a public figure now." Gabriel had the decency to look embarrassed. "Again, I'm sorry for the way this happened. I didn't plan the announcement for yesterday, but an internal leak forced my hand." "A leak?" He hesitated as if pondering how much to reveal. "I believe someone inside the company, someone who doesn't approve of the project, leaked distorted information to the press. A story was starting to circulate that I had suffered brain damage in the accident and was making irrational decisions. I had to get ahead of it." Julianne frowned, processing the information. "And who do you suspect?" "I have a few ideas," he replied vaguely, "but I don't want to burden you with corporate problems. The important thing is that the project is secure, the funding is guaranteed, and your position, well, it's reserved for you if you still want it. You didn't leave me much choice, Gabriel. What would it look like if I refused now?" "I would completely understand," he assured her, "and we would issue a statement saying you decided to remain in your current role at the hospital for personal reasons. No drama, no damage to your reputation." Julianne studied his face, looking for signs of manipulation or falsehood, but all she saw was sincerity and a trace of vulnerability that seemed genuine. "Yesterday was wonderful," she said finally, changing the subject slightly. "The kids can't stop talking about you." Gabriel's face lit up. "They are incredible, Julianne. Truly special. You've done an amazing job raising them on your own." "Thank you." She hesitated, then decided to be completely honest. "Sophia asked me if you're going to be their father now." Gabriel almost choked on his coffee. "And what did you say?" "Do for me." "Truth? That you're a special friend who is helping us. Julianne kept her gaze fixed on his. I need to know, Gabriel. What is happening between us? Is it real or just part of this project? The question hung between them for a moment. Gabriel reached his hand across the table, touching hers gently. It's absolutely real, Julianne. So real that frankly it scares me. I've never felt anything like this before. He paused, searching for the right words. The project would exist regardless of us. It's something I've been planning for years, just waiting for the right person to lead it. But what I feel for you, for your children, that's totally unexpected. A gift the accident brought me. Julianne felt her heart race at the sincerity in his voice. I'm scared too, she admitted. Everything is happening so fast, and our lives are so different. The differences don't matter, Julianne. What matters is how we feel when we're together. Gabriel squeezed her hand lightly. I know I asked to go slow, one step at a time. And I stand by that. But I also want to be clear, I see a future with you. With the three of you. The statement, so direct and sincere, left Julianne speechless for a moment. Part of her wanted to protect herself, to remember all the past disappointments, all the broken promises. But another part, the part that had reawakened since Gabriel entered her life, wanted to believe. I accept the position, she said finally. And as for us, let's keep getting to know each other. Building something solid. For myself and for my children, I need to be sure. Gabriel's smile was radiant. That's all I ask. Time to show you that I'm worthy of your trust. The rest of the lunch passed in a lighter mood, with Gabriel explaining the next steps of the project and Julianne sharing ideas she had developed since the meeting. There was a synchronicity in their way of thinking, a natural complementarity that made the professional conversation as fluid as the personal one. When Julianne had to return to the hospital, Gabriel walked her to the entrance. Can I see you again tomorrow? I'd like to show you the space we're preparing for the project's headquarters. I have the day off tomorrow. I was planning to spend the day with the children. They can come too, Gabriel suggested immediately. There's a park near the building where the headquarters will be. We could have lunch together afterward. It's perfect, she said sincerely. The whole project is extraordinary. When the children started to get restless, Gabriel suggested they go to the park as promised. On the way, Julianne again noticed the man from the second car, now following them discreetly on foot. Gabriel, she said firmly, who is that man and why is he following us? He sighed, realizing he could no longer avoid the subject. That's Antonio, head of my security team. And yes, he's following us, because we've recently reinforced security. Why? Julianne insisted, keeping her voice low so the children, running a few feet ahead, wouldn't hear. Gabriel looked around, then guided her to a bench under a tree, from where they could watch Lucas and Sophia playing on the playground. Remember I mentioned that my accident might not have been an accident? His tone was grave. Well, now we have confirmation. The car's brake system was tampered with. Julianne felt her blood run cold. Do you think someone tried to kill him? Though Christina's voice emerged from behind them, making Julianne jump. That's what my paranoid brother believes. Gabriel turned, irritation evident on his face. Christina, what are you doing here? I came to see this magnificent project you announced without consulting the board. She sat beside them, completely at ease. Impressive, I must admit. Expensive, but impressive. Julianne watched the interaction between the siblings, the palpable tension in the air. You don't believe the accident was intentional? She asked Christina directly. The woman shrugged. I believe accidents happen, and that head trauma can lead to conspiracy theories. The forensic reports are clear, Gabriel retorted, his voice tense, and we both know who had reasons to want me out of the way. Oh, please, Christina rolled her eyes. Now you're going to insinuate that I tried to kill my own brother. Over some strategic disagreements? Not you, Gabriel replied, his eyes fixed on his sister. But maybe someone who works for you. Someone who would benefit directly from my absence. Christina's gaze hardened. Be careful with your accusations, little brother. Your new friend and her adorable children are listening. Her gaze shifted significantly to Lucas and Sophia, playing happily a few feet away. The veiled threat did not go unnoticed. Gabriel stood up abruptly. If you or anyone associated with you gets near them... Gabriel, Julianne intervened, alarmed by the escalating tension. The children can hear. He backed off, taking a deep breath to control himself. You're right. I'm sorry, he turned to Christina. This conversation is over. Please leave. Christina stood up with calculated elegance. As you wish. But think about what I said, Julianne. I've known my brother for much longer than you have. She adjusted her impeccable blazer. And as for the will, darling, ask him about Carolina. And about the baby. With that final bombshell, she walked away, leaving Julianne completely stunned and Gabriel visibly shaken. What's this about a will? And who is Carolina? Julianne asked as soon as Christina was far enough away. Gabriel ran a hand through his hair in a gesture of frustration. Christina has been talking to you, hasn't she? When? Yesterday at the hospital. She mentioned a will including my children as beneficiaries. He sighed heavily. I plan to discuss this with you at the appropriate time. Yes, I updated my will to include a trust fund for Lucas and Sophia, not to control you or create dependency, but to ensure that no matter what happens to me, they will have guaranteed educational opportunities. And why would you do that for children you barely know? Gabriel looked directly into her eyes. Because I care deeply about them, and about you. Because I want to be a part of your lives, long-term in every possible way. And Carolina? The baby. The pain that crossed Gabriel's face was palpable. Carolina was my wife, as I mentioned. What I didn't tell you is that she was pregnant when we separated. He closed his eyes briefly. She lost the baby in the 3rd month. It was devastating for both of us, even though we were already separated. Julianne felt her anger subside, replaced by compassion. I'm so sorry. That's terrible. It was almost 10 years ago, but yes, it left scars. He took her hands in his. Christina is trying to manipulate you, to plant doubts. She has always been a master at playing on others' insecurities. Why is she so opposed to the project? To us? Because it represents a fundamental change in the company's direction. Less exclusive focus on profit, more on social impact. Gabriel squeezed her hands lightly. And as for us, I think she fears that with a family, a full personal life, I'll become less focused on business. Less controllable. The explanation made sense, but there was still something bothering Julianne. Gabriel, if someone really tried, if you're in danger, I can't risk my children, so I have to protect them above all else. I understand completely, he replied, his gaze intense, and I promise I would never put you at risk. That's why the enhanced security. It's temporary, just until we identify everyone involved. At that moment, Lucas came running up to them. Mom, Mr. Gabriel, come see what Sophia made. She built a super tall sand tower. The serious conversation had to be interrupted. Gabriel smiled at the boy, getting up. Let's go see this amazing tower then. As she watched Gabriel interact with her children, helping Sophia stabilize her sand construction, Julianne felt torn. There was real danger in getting more deeply involved with him. Not just the physical danger he faced, but also the emotional risk of trusting again, of letting her children get attached to someone who might, as Christina had insinuated, lose interest when the fascination wore off. But there was also an extraordinary opportunity, not just the professional project that could transform her career, but the chance to build something meaningful with a man who demonstrated, in every small gesture, a genuine care for her and her children. As they were returning to the car after the park visit, Gabriel gently touched her arm. We still have a lot to talk about, he said softly, but I want you to know that regardless of anything, my feelings for you are real, and my intentions are serious. Julianne nodded, unable to articulate everything she felt at that moment. We need time, Gabriel, to build trust, to really get to know each other. All the time you need, he promised. One step at a time, remember? Back at Julianne's apartment, Gabriel helped settle the exhausted children. Lucas insisted he read a story before bed, while Sophia had already fallen asleep in her mother's lap on the way back. When they were finally alone in the small living room, the air between them was charged with unsaid words and intense feelings. I get scared sometimes, Julianne admitted softly, of how everything changed so quickly, of how you came into our lives and suddenly it seems impossible to imagine a future without you in it. Gabriel came closer, touching her face gently. I'm scared too, he confessed, scared of not being worthy of what I'm receiving, of the second chance life has given me through you. Slowly, as if asking for permission, he leaned in and kissed her. Not the brief, chaste kiss of the previous day, but a deep kiss laden with promise and emotion. Julianne responded, allowing herself for the first time in years to feel fully without reservations or barriers. When they finally broke apart, Gabriel rested his forehead on hers. Regardless of what happens with the project, with the company, with anything, what I feel for you is real. What we are building is real. I believe you, Julianne replied, surprised to realize it was true. Despite all the doubts planted by Christina, despite the extraordinary circumstances that had brought them together, she believed in the sincerity of Gabriel's feelings. 3 months later, the New Beginnings project was officially inaugurated. As coordinator, Julianne had implemented innovations that further expanded its reach: partnerships with universities for professional qualification, a mentoring system between more experienced and novice mothers, and expansion beyond the healthcare field. The project launch was a success. Julianne, now confident and articulate in her new role, spoke about the real impact of the initiative, using stories of women whose lives were already being changed. Her speech, which blended technical data with human empathy, was met with a standing ovation. Gabriel watched her from the front row, his eyes shining with an emotion that went beyond professional pride. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of activity. The investigation into the attempt on Gabriel's life continued, but the primary suspects, a group of executives linked to a competitor that had lost a major contract to Mercer Healthcare, fled the country before they could be arrested. Although the threat had diminished, Gabriel's security remained tight, a constant reminder of the world he inhabited. Christina, after a tense meeting with Gabriel, was reassigned to a less strategic position within the group. Faced with irrefutable evidence of her obstructionism and indirect connections to the plot against her brother, she had no choice but to accept the demotion to avoid a public scandal. The relationship between the siblings remained strained, limited to formal and sporadic interactions. Meanwhile, the bond between Julianne and Gabriel deepened. They managed to build a routine that balanced their demanding professional responsibilities with family life. Gabriel became a constant and loving presence in the lives of Lucas and Sophia. He taught Lucas how to play football, helped Sophia with her school projects, and most importantly, showed them what a present and affectionate father figure looked like. One rainy Saturday afternoon, about a year after they had met, the four of them were at Gabriel's penthouse, building a fort out of sheets and cushions in the living room. Lucas, now 7, looked at Gabriel with the serious expression of a child about to ask something important. "Gabriel," he said, "my friend at school asked if you're my dad now. What should I say?" Gabriel stopped what he was doing and looked at Julianne, who smiled, encouraging him to answer. He turned back to Lucas and Sophia, who were also waiting expectantly. "Well, champ," he began, pulling the children closer, "I'm not your biological father, the one who helped make you. But I love you as if you were my own children, and I love your mom very much." He looked at Julianne. "So if you want, you can say I'm your dad. A different kind of dad, one who was lucky enough to find you." Lucas's face lit up and Sophia hugged Gabriel tightly. "I want you to be my dad," she declared. Later that night, after the children were asleep, Julianne and Gabriel stood on the balcony. Watching the lights of New Orleans sparkle on the Mississippi River, the air was filled with a sense of peace and rightness. "I never thought I could be this happy," Julianne confessed, leaning her head on his shoulder. "A year ago I was just a tired nurse trying to survive. Now I have a job I love, my children are happy, and I have you." "I'm the one who's grateful," Gabriel replied, kissing the top of her head. "You and the kids gave my life a purpose I didn't know I was missing. You saved me in every way a person can be saved." He took a small velvet box from his pocket and knelt before her. Julianne's heart skipped a beat. "Julianne Oliver," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "you are the most amazing woman I have ever met. You are strong, intelligent, compassionate, and the best mother in the world. You taught me how to love again. Will you marry me? Will you make our family official?" Tears streamed down Julianne's face as she looked at the simple but elegant diamond ring. Her answer was a whisper, but it carried all the certainty in the world. "Yes, yes. 1,000 times yes." Their wedding was a small, intimate ceremony, held on the same beach where they had played with the children on their first date. Lucas was the ring-bearer, and Sophia was the flower girl. Connie and Dr. Marshall were there, as were Bernardo and Helena from the foundation. It wasn't a union of two worlds, but the celebration of a world they had built together, a world where love, respect, and shared purpose were the true foundations. Years later, sitting on the porch of their new home in a quiet, tree-lined neighborhood, Julianne watched as a teenage Lucas taught a younger Gabriel Jr. how to throw a football. Sophia, now a budding preteen with a passion for science, was passionately explaining a school project to her father. The Mercer-Oliver family was a testament to how life can offer second chances in the most unexpected ways. The patient in room 305 had not only recovered his memory, but had found a new identity. And the nurse from the night shift had not only found a new job, but had rediscovered her capacity to love and trust. Together, they had written a new story, one far richer and more beautiful than either could have ever imagined alone.